So this morning I was checking in with my inner teacher and I asked for some guidance of what is something that's wicked helpful that I could share with my listeners of the Karen Kenney Show. And it came through so loud and clear, right? I call it like word impressions, like in my head. And I heard one word and it was this BRFWA. BRFWA. And if you're like, what the heck is BRFWA? And why do I need this? Stick around to find out because this is an easy 5-step process that will help you to be more present, calm your nervous system, and help you to better navigate both emotional and physical pain. If you want to learn more about it, stick around, find out. Hey, you guys. Hey, welcome to the Karen Kenney Show. Hey, welcome back to the Karen Kenney Show. I'm super duper excited to be here with you. And if this is your first time here, welcome. I'm so happy that you found me somehow, or somebody referred you here, or sent you the link, or said, check it out. That's like the highest compliment I can be given is when somebody refers somebody to me. So just thank you for being here, loyal listeners and newbies. What a delight. So if you heard the intro to this, I was talking about how regular listeners, you know that I have as a spiritual mentor, right? It's one of the things that I do. I'm a spiritual mentor, is that I have a DSP, a daily spiritual practice. And always as part of my daily spiritual practice, I ask the divine, I ask God, I ask spirit, Holy Spirit, my inner teacher, my spiritual team, right? All the powers that be, all the divine helpers, because God knows I need a lot of help. Okay, but it's true. So I ask all my divine helpers, like, hey, how can I be of service today? Like, put me to good use. Like, put me to good use. Like, if I'm going to be here in this illusion, in this body, like, please, for the love of Jesus and all things holy, put me and my eyeballs and my brain and my mouth and my hands and my body, right? Like, put me to good use. So there's a prayer that I say every day that's adapted from A Course in Miracles, where I basically ask to be told where to go and what to say and who to say it to and all that stuff, right? So this morning I asked specifically, like, hey, what is one way that I could be wicked helpful to the people that I communicate with, right? Whether it's through the people in the nest, my group spiritual mentoring program, or if I decide to do a podcast today. And one thing came through loud and clear. And a lot of times I think it can be funny, like spiritual people or spiritual teachers or spiritual leaders, whatever, will say things like, "Oh, and I heard the voice of God. Like I heard God tell me to do this," right? For me, it's more like, I get an impression. I call them word impressions. Like all of a sudden there's something in my mind. I've heard people call these things like downloads, whatever. Sometimes I'm just like they're inspired ideas, right? But it was clear to me, like this thing that came into my mind, the word impression was this thing called BRFWA. Is one word, BRFWA. And I see the big letters in my head, right? It's like BRFWA, BRFWA. And you might be like, hey, what the hell are you talking about? Well, I'm going to share it with you. First of all, I appreciated that's what they brought into my head, because BRFWA is something that a concept, it's a process that has been around for me for over 20 years, a wicked long time. And so, of course, I got to give you a little story. I got to give you a little backstory. So stay with me, because this is going to benefit you, I promise. So some of you may know I've been a yoga teacher for a wicked long time. I started teaching yoga before I was even certified. So back in like 1998, 1999 is when I first started teaching yoga. And then in 2001, I went to the Kripalu Yoga Center, right? So the Kripalu Center for Yoga and Health, it's officially called. It's out in the Western Massachusetts in the Berkshires. It's been around for a really long time. So I went there and I lived there for a month. And it's like being initiated, man. It's like hardcore. Like you are there for a month living at Kripalu, right? Like going through the whole thing. Like we would wake up at like 5:30 in the morning. We would do like yoga, do a yoga class, and then we would we would have silent breakfast, and then we would go and we would do training for 3 hours, and then we would have lunch, and then we would come back and we'd do training some more, and then we would, like, we were immersed in the yogic lifestyle and the teachings of Swami Kripalu. And one of the things that I will say about Swami Kripalu, and if you've never been to Kripalu, it is an experience, and I highly encourage you to go. I encourage people in the nest to go. I encourage my yoga students to go, and people I work with one-to-one in one-to-one mentoring. It's a powerful experience to go away and just kind of immerse yourself for 2 days, a weekend, right? An hour retreat, or go there for a specific workshop or training. It's incredible. They don't do the YTT the same way as when they did it back when I did it, like over like 23 years ago, but I still think it's an incredible thing. But what I was going to say is, when we were there and when I first walked into the building, I'll never forget. So Swami Kripalu, the word Kripalu means compassion, and Swami Kripalu is who the yoga center, the Kripalu Yoga Center, is, inspired by, named after, whatever it was, for him and the people that he taught, etc. And I'll never forget the first time I walked into the lobby and I walked straight back to where the doors are that go out to the outside, to the big field in the back. And I saw a picture of Swami Kripalu. And I think that there's just these kind of moments, and maybe you've experienced this yourself, whether you saw a person or a picture of a person or something, and it just like, boom, it's just like, and I just slammed both of my hands into my chest. If you're not watching this and you're listening, it was like, boom. Like when I saw that picture of Swami Kripalu in the lobby smiling back at me, it was like something happened in my hat, man. I was like, oh my God. And the word, like, I just looked at his face and I'm like, yes, like this is a teacher of compassion. And there's so much I could tell you about him, but we also call him Bapuji. So I'll just never forget. And I think it's important because me going in and seeing his face and feeling that feeling in my body, it really allowed me to be open and receptive. I always say, like, STOTJ, spiritual team on the job, that I was able to learn, like to really learn and to be available to these teachings. And BRFWA was one of them. And so BRFWA is one of the tools, one of the processes that I keep in my spiritual toolkit for all the things that I mentioned in the intro, right? If I want to be more present, if I want to navigate an uncomfortable feeling or some pain that's like coming up, when I want to calm and soothe my nervous system, if I feel myself starting to tip into that sympathetic nervous system reaction of fight and flight, right? And I don't want to do that, right? Fight, flight, freeze, fawn, flop, all the F's, all the different ways that we respond to stress or to trauma or get triggered or whatever. Okay. So BRFWA is one of the yogic and spiritual tools that I keep in my spiritual toolbox. Yoga philosophy and yoga science and yoga spirituality will always be a part of my toolkit that I share with people. And so I still call upon, to this day, I use BRFWA. I use it in my yoga classes. Like I said, I use it with my clients. I teach it to people in the nest. And today, dear listeners, I'm going to share it with you. Now, if some of you have ever been to a Kripalu yoga class, you may have heard this concept. You might be a Kripalu teacher. Nice other lineage holders in the house. So I'm going to tell you what it stands for, and then I'm going to tell you how to use it. And I really always want this show to be like a little bit of storytelling, like using stories in a positive way, right? Sometimes rewriting or editing kind of the stories we tell about ourselves and others in the world. Yes. But I love to do some storytelling, and then to take spiritual principles that we can apply to the everyday moments of our life, to the everyday stories of our lives, to like what is happening in our life. So I always want this show to be practical and applicable, and that you can put it into action like right away. Okay, so BRFWA, it stands for this. And if you want to write this down, you can write it down. I always say, though, make sure you give credit. If this is something that you're going to share, make sure you let people know that it comes from the Kripalu tradition. Okay, BRFWA. B stands for breathe. I stands for relax. F stands for feel. W stands for watch. And A stands for allow. And one of the things that I love about BRFWA is that it's a really simple and straightforward technique. It's going to help you to be in the present moment, moment to moment. Like anytime that you find yourself that you're starting to like lose your peace, like starting to lose your peace of mind, when you're starting to kind of lose your mind, when you're kind of starting to lose your practice, when you're starting to like lose your shit, right? This is also a wicked helpful practice that you can do. And I made sure to write myself down a couple of notes just so I don't forget, because I try to on these shows, like I could literally talk for hours about these things that I bring up. Like you don't want to have to sit here, unless I'm usually having a conversation with another person. You do not want to sit here and have me go on and on and on. So I try to keep these like short and punchy. And so sometimes I make notes just so I don't forget if there's something important that in particular that I want to share, so it doesn't get lost in translation. Okay. So let's just say something is coming up for you. Let's say you notice yourself about to start, you're starting to get a little fucking impatient with your kids, right? You're starting to like get a little annoyed, like you're on hold on the phone, you're standing in line, people aren't doing what you want them to do, whatever the thing is. And you just start to feel, whether it's fear or agitation or something, some sensation arising in your body. And you know how this usually ends. Okay. You know how this usually ends. And so we're like, we're not going down that path. So I think of BRFWA also, we talk about in the work that I do, in coaching and in mentoring, as like, we have these habits, we have these patterns, we have this programming, we have these ways of being. And I think of BRFWA as a really powerful pattern interrupt. Okay. It's a very mindful, you can think of it as mindfulness too. It's a very mindful way of being. Okay. So some shit's starting to stir within you. You're getting a little ants in your pants. You're starting to get a little agitated, right? Okay. Number one is you're going to breathe. Now, how we breathe matters. Okay. So in this case, let's make it specific. I want you to breathe in through your nose. If you can, obviously, if your nose is stuffed up or whatever, but do your best. Breathe in through your nose. And then try to exhale that breath out twice as long through your mouth, like you're breathing forcefully through a straw. Like, I don't know if you can hear that, but if you watch the podcast on YouTube, you can see me doing it, right? So you breathe in through your nose, exhale out twice as long through your mouth. It's also going to help your nervous system to downregulate. Do that several times, because what the breath is doing in this moment, it's helping you to reconnect with the sensations in your body by paying attention to the inhalation and the exhalation. This is also going to help you to slow the fuck down. Just slow it down, right? So breathe, right? Take some full, deep belly breaths. Dirga pranayama, we would call complete breath, full breath, right? So step number one, you feel yourself starting to get a little kooky. Slow it right down. Slow it right down. Let's get in touch. Let's get in touch. Let's go inside. Breathe. Pay attention to the inhalation and the exhalation. That's step one. Okay. Step two, relax. Right now, look, I know how annoying it is when you're starting to feel anxious, when you're starting to feel agitated, when you're starting to get those emotional ants in your pants, right? Like nobody likes being told, like, relax. Like, oh yeah, tell me to relax when I'm anxious. Like that's going to help me, right? But listen, hear me out. I know as a fellow person who navigates anxiety, right? Listen to me. One of the ways that you can make relax, move it from a mental concept to a physical concept that actually helps you is this. Notice in your body, like scan through your body and notice any place where you are gripping, right? I just clenched my fist, where you are like clenching, like maybe you're clenching your jaw, where you're tightening, maybe you're tightening your belly, maybe you're white knuckling your steering wheel, maybe you're holding, you're just like your ears are up by you, your shoulders are up by your ears, like you're rigid, right? Any place where you feel this gripping, this resisting, this tightness, this fear, right? Showing up physically. This is when we can just kind of scan through the body and then consciously soften your muscles. So notice if you're clenching your jaw, and if you are, soften the jaw. You can move your jaw left and right, right? Relax the jaw. I just did it, right? Just relax the jaw. Any place where you notice that you're forcing, like if you really are kind of trying to force your way or force getting your way or trying to like make something happen, any place where there's contraction. Because I always say love doesn't happen in a contracted state. It's when we open up, it's when we relax. So we want to reduce any effort that we are currently kind of inflicting, right? Reduce any effort around heightened mental activity, right? So, for example, the need to attack, defend, or prove when you start to put your dukes up, you know what I mean? So, we want to try to help ourselves to consciously relax, to soften, to let go a little bit. We all know how to kind of take that breath out, drop the shoulders, relax your belly, close your eyes for a moment, right? Just ease on down the road a little bit physically. And this is going to help you move away from that sympathetic nervous system reaction of that fight, flight, fear, flop, and fawn. Okay. That's step 2. Step number 3 is the feel, right? We want to feel. I always say to my yoga students, notice what you notice. Notice what you're noticing right now. Bring your awareness, focus your awareness internally to yourself, right? Notice the sensations that are coming up in your body. Notice the feelings that might be bubbling up to the surface. Notice the memories that might be arising in your brain, in your mind, okay? Notice the thoughts that are flowing between your mind and then the reaction that they're giving your body, because the body and your mind are not separated, right? They are constantly incommunicado. They're constantly talking to each other. You know what I'm saying? So be present for what is arising. Be present for what is arising within you, physically, mentally, emotionally, right? And then I want you to imagine that you are sending calming, healing, kind, compassionate breath to those parts of your body that are feeling activated, overstimulated, intense, triggered, anxious, whatever. So literally think about sending the breath and also sending kind and compassionate thoughts. Okay. So we have the breath, number 1, relax, number 2, and then we're feeling, we're noticing what we're noticing. We're focusing on the sensations that are arising without attaching meaning to them. Let me say, just be present, just notice, right? What's coming up. Because this is the next step. Number 4, we're going to watch. So I think about the watch, right? The W in BRFWA. This is when we get to do what we call witness consciousness. This is when we watch and we witness. This is when we try to take like a higher above the battleground, above the timeline. We step back, we draw back so that we can have a different perspective. And this is when we can kind of observe the experience, right? We can observe what the ego is churning up inside of us, but we can observe it, right, with compassion, with curiosity, right? And so this way we meet ourselves in whatever is arising within us. We meet it with curiosity instead of judgment. Like I said, we call this witness consciousness in Kripalu yoga. And what it allows us to do is, you ever see a movie where you're like zoomed in really close and then all of a sudden the cameraman like pulls way back and you get this new POV, this new point of view. And this is what it allows us to do. It allows us to kind of separate ourselves, to stand apart from the perceived problem or pain or sensation that we are currently having. And it gives us a new perspective. And that when we can remove ourselves from the action, the chitta in our mind, that chatter, that monkey mind that is just like that critical mind that is just like verbal vomiting, like fear all over the place, right? It helps us when we step back and can watch and witness from a distance. Now, I'm not talking about completely disassociating yourself, although I will say this, in my own life, disassociation, I've talked about this on a previous episode. It often gets a bad rap, but for a lot of us, that was a survival mechanism. We were allowed to kind of step way back, and it allowed us to survive some pretty intense shit. Okay. But I'm not necessarily talking about like stepping like completely outside of yourself, but just shifting back, not over-identifying with the body, not over-identifying with the problem or the trigger or the emotion, right? Because we know that emotions, right? The chemical flush of an emotion takes like 90 seconds, 2 minutes. It's going to move. It's going to shift and change if we allow it to, if we don't get too attached, right? To what's happening. If we can create a little room, a little breathing room, you know what I mean? Okay, that's step 4, watch, witness. Number 5 is allow. This is the A in BRFWA, allow. So can we let the experience, whatever is happening, can we just for a moment let it be what it is? Just let it be what it is without trying to change it, understand it, control it, judge it, assign meaning to it right away, right? Just allow ourselves, we call it like riding the wave, like riding the wave. And if you're watching this, you see my hand kind of making like a wave-like motion, like riding the wave of the experience. We stop resisting what is, we stop fighting it and trying to control it, right? We stop trying to control other people and events and every little fucking thing out of fear and anxiety, right? We allow the energy to kind of move through ourselves, to move through us, to move through the experience and allow it, because if we allow it, it will settle. We see animals out in the wild, right? You see a gazelle getting chased by a tiger, whatever, the cheetah, the tiger, the lion is not successful. And you'll often see the animal, it will drop to the ground. It will start to shake. It's allowing the chemicals of that fear to wash through their body. And then they just get back up. They shake it off and they go back to the watering hole and they go back to what they're doing. They're not completely traumatized by it because they've allowed the wave of sensation to move through their body. They're not sitting there going like, oh, why did the tiger try and catch me? Like, why? Hey, it's not fair. It knows I have a bum leg. It knows I'm having a bad day, right? It hasn't been enough water on the Serengeti, right? They're not sitting there, like they allow what is coming up to come up and they don't attach too much meaning to it. And this is the thing about BRFWA that is so powerful, is that it's a fantastic way to help ourselves, right? I often say to my clients jokingly, help me to help you, right? Help me to help you. But BRFWA is a great way for you to help you. This is a great way to self-guide and to self-coach. And this is a powerful, powerful, powerful way to practice being present, which is, I think, the title of what I called this episode, right? Practice being in the present. Being present is the present. It is the gift that you give yourself, because so much suffering is ego generated. It is fear generated. And it happens because the ego mind loves to time travel. It loves to go back in time. It loves to leave the present moment and go in search of. It's like in A Course in Miracles, we say, seek and do not find. It loves to go seeking for shit, right? Oh, I want love. I want peace. I want happiness. The ego loves to quote unquote go seeking for that shit, but it's amazing how it never seems to find it, right? Seek, but do not find. That's the agenda of the ego. Because the ego likes to time travel and go back in time. And the brain too. The brain likes to find what's familiar. It's not necessarily looking for novel new experiences, right? So the ego likes to go back in time. It likes to play. And you can double amen hands me if you know what I'm talking about. It likes to go back in time. It likes to replay old hurts. It loves to rehash those old betrayals. It likes to highlight the mistakes. It likes to point to all the stories and all the beliefs and all the reasons and the how comes and all this stuff, because it's a field day, right? Like the Olympics are like happening. You know, when you look at all the events of the Olympics, and I'm like, oh yeah, over here we have the triathlon of guilt, and then we have the javelin throw of blame, and we have the 400 meters of regret, right? It's like this is the Olympics. This is the Olympics of the ego. It loves to assign guilt. It loves to assign shame and blame and regret about what has happened, what hasn't happened, what you did do, you didn't do, what you should have done, like all that shit, right? Or it insists on time traveling into the future, right? And that's where we get to rush forward in time. Like literally, we start to project, we time travel to ourselves in the future. And we start to imagine and envision and have these expectations of what we think is going to happen or what should happen or what we want to have happen. We're already trying to control the damn future, right? And this is where we have doubt and anxiety and expectations and worry about what we think might happen. And oh my God, all the what ifs, the worries, and the worst case scenarios. You know what I'm saying? But here's the thing, healing only happens in the present moment. I did a podcast talking about going back to the scene of the crime, right? We think if we go back and we go to the past, like that's how the healing, if we go back to that, it's like, no, healing happens in the present moment because that's where you are right now. That's where is the intersection between you and the divine. I always say, you know where God is? God meets you right on time. The divine meets you right on time. The universe meets you right on time. Spirit meets you right here and now. That's where the healing happens. When you think about like symbols, right? Like we think about all the different kind of religious symbols, but the Christian kids, the Catholic kids, right? We know that symbol of the cross, right? With the high, it looks kind of like a little T, right? That cross symbol. To me, that intersection, right? How I think of it, like a lot of people think of it like, oh God, the cross, it's where Jesus died and suffered. But I often think about it as like that's where the heavenly realm comes down and bumps up against the earthly realm. That's where the divine and the divinity and humanity intersect. We have that moment. And where is that moment? Right here, right now. Healing is available to us in every single moment because that's where you are and that's where love is. Capital L love, that divine love, right? It's happening right here and right now. So in the present moment, this is why BRFWA can be so powerful and so healing because it meets us. It is a tool that we can use right here, right now, wherever we are. Okay. So this simple technique gives you a useful way to come back to here and now, come back to where the holy instant is, come back to where love is actually happening here in the present moment, and allows you to not only be here, but it can guide you safely back home to your body, to your breath, to the beloved. It guides you back to your heart, right? It guides you back to your right mind. It guides you back to the God of your own understanding. Whether you call that the divine, the universe, spirit, higher power, mother nature, whatever your word is for the divine, right? It guides you back to love. So BRFWA, we want to BRFWA ourselves, right? I'll hold this up. So this is something we got in our YTT, just so you see it. So I'm holding up a little thing that basically says BRFWA, just so you can see it. And you'll see this graphic. It shows like this wave of sensation, right? So it's breathe, relax, feel, watch, allow. Okay. And it's basically, there's a catalyst, there's an inciting incident. Usually there's something that happens, whether it's a thought, whether it's a feeling, a sensation in the body, a situation, a circumstance, right? That's the inciting incident, as I call it as a writer, right? The inciting incident happens. Okay. And then we start to have some sensations start to build up, right? We have a thought that creates a feeling in the body. We have a feeling in the body. It generates a thought. Okay. So the sensations start to build. And then right at the top of this wave, right? If you can imagine an arch, if you're not watching this, if you're listening, if you drew a piece on a piece of paper from point A to point B, but instead of it going straight across, it goes up like an arch. Like think of like the arch in, I think is it in Philly? Is it in Philadelphia? What's the town with the arches or the arch? Okay. Think about like a big arc up to the sky. Okay. I made my point, like a rainbow almost. Okay. At the crest, at the very top of it, this is where the sensations crest. Okay. And then they start to come down the other side. Okay. And this is when we start to have acceptance and integration. Okay. And then basically we come down and this is where there's a shift. This is a process of moving, of shifting yourself. Your thinking, your feeling, your breath, your mind, you can feel it in your body. This is how transformation and change happens, right? So BRFWA leads to change. It leads to transformation. And whether that is a shift in how we're perceiving ourselves, how we're experiencing a situation or an old trigger or an old feeling or something that used to scare us, or even if you're just standing on your yoga mat and you teach it as making you hold, like I often do, a posture a little bit longer, we slow it down. So we can actually feel some shit, right? So we can be present to what is alive in us, what's going on in us. And we can use the breath, right? So something happens and we think, just breathe, right? We take the big breath. Ask ourselves, what are you feeling right now? Just allow yourself to feel. Allow these sensations to arise within us, right? So breathe, relax, feel. I skipped it. Breathe. Then we relax. We notice where we're tight. Right? We allow ourselves to soften the body, soften the muscles, no gripping, right? Breathe, relax, feel, notice what you notice. Watch. We try to step back, create a little space. Just witness what's coming up for us without judgment, without meaning, without making things wrong, without labeling things. And then we let the experience be what it is. We can move through that wave. Think of it like riding that wave, and allow yourself to be in the present moment. When you are in the present moment, that's when you are alive. That's when you are paying attention. That is when you can be present for your loved ones, for your sweetie, for your children, for your animals, for the environment, right? So that we can actually make choices that are in alignment with who we really are, with our goodness, with our holiness, with our beautifulness, right? So it's important that we learn how to be able to stand in our own sacred ground, to be present for what is happening within and without. And as we're moving towards, life is getting extra, I always say people try to like say like keep your podcast like not so time, but here's the reality. We are moving into an election cycle, an election year, and things are already getting extra wacky out there. So having tools in your spiritual toolkit are so important. And the kind of tools that I like to use help us somatically, subconsciously, spiritually, right? They help us with brain science, right? Pattern interrupts, all these things. These are the kinds of things that I work on with my clients one-to-one, but also in my group mentoring program, The Nest. So you guys, this is just like one of the, I can't even tell you so many things that I share with people. And if you found this helpful, and if you've been thinking about joining The Nest, it's like, what are you waiting for? Come on and join us, because it is life-changing. I'm telling you, it's a friendly group of people. We do good work, we do deep work, and we have a lot of fun. And if you want to join, if you want to find out more info, just go to KarenKenney.com/nest, right? If you want to get on my email list, KarenKenney.com/sign up. And if you want to leave a little tip, if you want to leave a little love donation from your heart to mine, to support the show, if you dig the show, you can always do that too. KarenKenney.com/tipjar. Tipjar, one word. All right, you guys, I hope you found BRFWA, breathe, relax, feel, watch, allow. I hope you found it helpful in some way. If you did, please write to me and let me know. Send me a message, DM me, find me online, shoot up a message. I love you guys. I appreciate you. Thank you so much, beautiful listener, for tuning in. It means so much to me. And like I said, I hope that you put this into action and that you use it, and that you see that it can be a really helpful tool to help us practice being in the present, and to shift our minds from fear to love, to help our nervous systems have an experience of safety, and to get out of our head and drop down into our heart. Okay. Wherever you go out there today, may you leave yourself and the people and the place and the animals and the environment and the planet better than how you first found it. Wherever you go, may your presence be a blessing. Bye.